I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Mr. and Mrs. Smith composer David Fleming. First of all, David, congratulations on your two Emmy nominations for Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Jim Henson Idea Man. That's fantastic.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, crazy. Feels like a practice.
Um,
So,
yeah. Where were you when you found out that you were nominated for both?
um, I was getting coffee, and actually, a friend called me, and I thought they were mistaken about the whole thing because they said you were nominated for two Emmys, and one of them was for main theme, and I was like, there is no main theme for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I wasn't in consideration for that, so I was convinced that the whole thing was wrong. But
Was a joke.
yeah.
Well, thankfully it wasn't. Let's talk about your work on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We've had the pleasure of chatting about it previously and going into some depth because it's no secret that I listen to this score a lot. I think it's really, really innovative and audacious. Um, but let's go back to the beginning. Why did you feel that the season premiere was the best representation of your work? I know the reasons why. I've got plenty of reasons, but what was it about that season premiere that you really loved the work on it?
I would love to hear your reasons because I was very stuck on what episode to use. Actually, it was my sister who, in the past, has when I can't decide things, I let her decide. She made that choice, but I actually do think it is a good representation because for a number of reasons. First of all, it's it was directed by Hiro Murai, and I think he did this amazing job of kind of establishing this very unique tone and also his very unique tempo, because it has this sort of like slow burn quality and then it all of a sudden explodes. Um, but also because it was really my first thing to touch, and I was trying to define the musical world in that first episode, the themes and the sound, and I think there were a lot of ways one could go with a show that's that kind of fresh. Um, you know, for better or for worse, the choices that I made, I feel like really took root in that first episode. So I think it is a good representation.
I think so too. Can we let's talk about my favorite track from the entire TV season, and that was Meet Cute. That din 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 din, din like it's actually like seared into my brain. What inspired that seductive mix of percussive and ambient melody? Because it's something that I think it's very new and very original and unique. Talk me through that.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, a lot of it was quite honestly like uh, fueled by panic of what is this sound, and I was really reaching around my room for a lot of instruments that I hadn't played much, just to the pilot is so unique, and the chemistry between Donald and Maya is very unique. um, and for whatever reason this kalimba line that I started to play just felt like it fit something there, especially in that scene. There's a lot of curiosity. You're sort of curious as the audience for what the premise is at that point, and the main characters themselves don't understand really what they're getting into. So and it's this really interesting way that they present exposition in a way, because the characters are having to do an interview about themselves to start their time at this spy agency. So there was this element of curiosity and really off kilter chemistry, which I think really defines the two of them. It's not, I title it Meet Cute sort of ironically because, along with a lot of their relationship, it's not smooth, it's not perfect, it's not elegant. Um, and in fact, they're like betrothed in a way to be part of the spy agency. So I thought there was something kind of awkward about the sound of the kalimba, and then you know um, combined it with these kind of purposefully detuned synthesizers to even further sort of say like where are we, and give this feeling of just being on the wrong foot somehow. And then
Yeah.
towards the end, as they sort of get into the to revealing their romantic histories, their tune starts to starts to be superimposed over the sort of awkward weirdness of the kalimba and the synths. Um, which develops as their relationship develops.
I think it's a beautiful example of what a meet cute, generally speaking, is. And I mean, even the words meet cute are kind of ironic in this instance, but it's hesitant and you don't really show all your cards until halfway through the track, and then it really starts to build as you would in any kind of meet cute. I just think it's just the perfect track. If you hadn't have picked the season premiere, I would have been really surprised. So there you go. Another great example is the first few minutes of the episode when we're watching Alexander Skarsgård and Eiza Gonzalez, and they're mysteriously ambushed and we don't know who they are. It's a great example of less is more. You ratchet up the tension pretty slowly, and then that relentless ambient pulse starts to really hit us until that shocking moment when Eiza is shot dead in her tracks. How do you know when to hold back and when to go full throttle?
Well, that scene was kind of interesting because it's kind of prologue to the show, and in a way, it's a fake out because I think they wanted to start the show with your idea of what a typical Mr. and Mrs. Smith might be, more in the line of Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
So even even the score, I would say, in that first bit is a little bit of a fake out as well, in that it's maybe a little more straightforward purposefully to sort of get you in the line of like this kind of action show, and then it doesn't. But I would say even in that context, when dealing with Hiro and Francesca Sloan, the showrunner, and Donald Glover, they always, even when they were doing like a big genre moment, they wanted it to have a unique feeling. So I think for that one, that there's a little bit of what I learned on The Last of Us, honestly, in that piece of slowly building tension and releasing. But yeah, it's funny that you say restraint, because I feel that's the most purposefully sort of unrestrained part, almost as like this weird little aside to the rest of the show. And then once you see Donald and Maya, it kind of gets to our story.
Yes, it does. It really kind of clicks into something quite different. Although we do go full throttle at some other points, like for example, that beautiful cacophony of sound in the aftermath of John and Jane delivering the cake bomb. That's when you can really just fly and give us something really unusual and different and disconcerting, discombobulating. So talk me through some of the instrumentation when you are doing a scene like that and you can really go for it.
Yeah, I mean, as a lot, especially in that first episode, more in the New York episodes, it's really synth heavy. Um, uh, and funnily enough, that cue started a lot different. It started a little more fun, like maybe other parts of the episode, where we're tagging along with these guys, and they're really charming and they're really fun, and you kind of get swept up into that. And that was a moment where Hiro and Francesca said, "We've kind of had fun, and this is an important moment because we need to see that there are stakes to this world." Up until that point, it's kind of like a cute first date episode. There's a little adventure with them finding a box, but at that point, the stakes get real, and yeah, and they all of a sudden realize that they're in way over their heads. So the music had started more sort of beat oriented in the beginning. And I think it was Hiro's idea of just like, can this just be, like you said, more cacophonous? And we really tried to push it quite far with that. But yeah, it really is, you know, uh, the interesting thing about, I've done other synth heavy things in the past, but something that I wanted to do on this was really embrace, as part of the cacophony, sort of imperfection as well. So a lot of the synth recordings are, it's recorded live. Usually with a synth, you'll program it, and it's more done on a computer. But a lot of the synths that we used on this episode were sort of performed just as any other instrument. And then after that, it's like, well, that's the performance. It's not perfectly in line, but it just you know adds to the spontaneity of it. So it was really important, especially in moments like that, that it not feel too gridded and perfect and safe in a way.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably why it comes across so organically. Because yeah, you obviously lean into the electronic elements, but it doesn't feel so programmed. Um, anyway, we're running out of time. We've run out of time, David. Thank you again for your time today. Beautiful score. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.